We're at the second round of the Lucas Oil Pro Motocross Championship at the FMF Glen Helen National, and the day is over. It was an awesome day today for spectators and riders. It never got really hot, clouds were in the sky all day, the track got brutal. That's been kind of a reoccurring story in the Lucas Oil Pro Motocross Championship from last week, and the tracks are just staying gnarly rough. They're not prepping them like they used to. So I figured instead of doing the post show like we did last week, let's just kind of dive into something else and look into how the tracks are developing. Behind me, we have this, and I don't even know what to call it. It's gnarly. I mean, most guys, that makes you say you don't want to quit your day job. Anyways, I'm going to kind of break down why I think certain riders are excelling and certain riders aren't on these certain tracks. For one, I think Muscan, he is doing awesome on these tracks because this is a lot like the European style. They don't prep over there as well. And you notice his riding style, he stands on the pegs a lot, doesn't ever really even take his feet off for corners. The big key to riding rough tracks good is keeping your feet on the pegs and always being balanced on the bike. So that's why I feel like Muscan, he's been very, very good in these conditions, and obviously he's our red plate holder in the lights class. Jeremy Martin, on the other hand, he had a rough day today. He fell down a lot. He was coming from the back of the pack all the time. He was just struggling today a little bit. But that doesn't take away. I believe he is a very good rider when it comes to riding rough tracks as well. So there's your two championship contenders in the lights class. A 450 class, it's a little bit different. Eli Tomac, he's a very stand-up rider. He stands up a lot. He crouches over the bike. He's always in the attack position. Dungey, over the years, I've always noticed he likes to sit down a lot more than the normal rider, which is okay, and it works when the tracks aren't brutal. But when the tracks get to be as gnarly as they have been the last 2 weekends in a row, you just can't sit down. You have to be off the pegs. I think this is kind of forcing Ryan Dungey to ride a little bit different than he's used to. We've all kind of noticed when Ryan Dungey does do the Motocross of Nations, he doesn't quite perform as high as he does over here. A lot of the reason is the tracks are a little bit rougher for Motocross of Nations. Tomac, on the other hand, he always seemed to excel at Motocross of Nations. He always seemed to be the guy. There was a time last year in Latvia where I remember watching him come from dead last and almost winning the race. So, looking back at things, am I surprised that Tomac's our red plate leader? No, not really, because he really can execute these rough tracks very well. As a former racer, this is definitely the roughest I've seen Glen Helen. Just for one, they're not taking the tractors back out on the track in between motos and prepping any sections. Usually it was basically a go-to thing. They would always go out there and they'd always prep the first turn and then the first straightaway. This year, they're just leaving it rough, and I like it. I think it's good. It separates the men from the boys. It makes the competition a little bit, it separates everybody a little bit, which separation, yeah, it can be bad sometimes, but you know what? When you're training your butt off and you're working as hard as you can during the week, you want to have that rough, nasty track so you can show everybody, hey, I'm in shape, I've been working at this, I've been doing all the right things, and this is why I'm winning races.
You can see him ahead of you.
Mike! How did he hold on to that?
Holy moly! Hey, I'll tell you how he held on. He's the biggest, burliest, gnarliest guy out there. That's how he held on. I think he just removed a brake bump from that downhill. But wow.
It's one thing for Hangtown being rough because the obstacles, they threw in a couple different things this year with the half pipe and the 150-footer fly jump, but it's pretty basic. Here at Glen Helen, when it gets rough, we're coming down hills that are literally so steep that if you tripped, you'd fall all the way to the bottom. And these hills, they develop braking bumps coming down them. And with the weather that we've had here in Glen Helen the last 3 days, being rainy, kind of moist, wet, the bumps are getting massive and they're huge. And as you can see behind me, like we've shown earlier, these ruts develop when the dirt gets soft like it is. That just about wraps us up at the FMF Glen Helen National here. I hope you enjoyed our new spin we kind of put on the post show here. I know it kind of gets repetitive and boring, and if you're a true fan of the sport, hey, you already know what happened in the race, but hopefully I can give you a little bit of a racer inside on what we really think goes on behind the scenes at the races and what the riders were really thinking, and a little bit of analogy on how the tracks are developing, all of the above. Tune in next week.